What's up, everybody? It's me, Stephen Billings here, and we're here for another episode of the long-running film series, 52 Must-See Movies and Why They Matter, based on the book that Dan Skip Allen. How you doing, Dan?
I am doing great. This baby right here has been a great book for us. This has been our Bible of this show that we've been doing on YouTube, and I'm glad I came up with the idea to do this.
Yeah, good idea, Dan, for adapting this video series from this book. Yes, so we're going to continue with this long series tonight with a classic film, American cinema at its best, On the Waterfront. Awesomeness, Marlon Brando, was it Elia Kazan is the director?
He's the director, yeah. Oh man.
It's a fantastic movie. Dan, do you want to go over some of the actors and some of the plot for us?
Yeah, well, the thing is, we have films like Elia Kazan has directed films like 12 Angry Men and films like that. Well, he takes a group of those actors character actors from 12 Angry Men, and he puts them in On the Waterfront. And I'll tell you what, seeing these guys again, people like Carl Malden as the priest, and he plays the Father Barry, and Lee J. Cobb. You might remember him, I believe. Oh, what juror was he? Was he juror number 3? I can't remember, but he plays Johnny Friendly, kind of a loan shark guy, and he's in here. Also, we have Martin Balsam is in this as well. Martin Balsam is another character actor you might know. He plays kind of like a detective. He kind of has a lot of different character actors from his other films that he was in. But you also have one of the Hitchcock blondes, Eve Marie Saint, as Edie Doyle. Rod Steiger is Charlie Malley. Now, you will not even recognize Rod Steiger in this film. You know what Rod Steiger looks like? He's almost unrecognizable in this film. We got a guy by the name of Pat Henning as K.O. Dugan. Now he's one of the kind of the longshoremen, and he has a big role in the overall plot of the story. But the main, of course, we know the main star of this film is Marlon Brando as, the best Terry Malloy could possibly be. I don't think you could have cast a better Terry Malloy in this film. He is just so great in this film, Marlon Brando is. And basically, you have this loan shark type of guy who's involved in like a how would you say, he basically makes these guys pay him for working on the docks and on these ships that come in and unloading all these ships. And that's Lee J. Cobb, Johnny Friendly. So he takes kickbacks from all the guys to make sure that everybody gets picked to do all this work on the waterfront, on the docks, and on the piers, because all kinds of ships and stuff come in. And well, some people necessarily aren't really happy with what he's doing, and they kind of want to go against him. And one of those people is the brother of Edie Doyle, Eve Marie Saint. We have Marlon Brando's Terry Malloy. He basically goes to her brother's house, and he's got a pigeon. Because these guys do these pigeon racing or pigeon contests or whatever you call it. He's like, oh, I got your fastest pigeon. He must have wandered off. Why don't you just go to the roof and I'll give you your pigeon back? Well, that wasn't a good thing to do, because the kid goes up to the roof and he didn't last very long. He gets thrown off the roof. And, of course, so the whole movie is Edie Doyle trying to figure out what happened to her brother. And also, this kind of creates a love story, a love plot line throughout the movie between her and Terry Malloy, because he's trying to butter up to her, try to make her think about him and not think about what happened to her brother. Because of these docks, you know, they don't have like a union. They have like a, I don't know, it's not really a union. It's kind of like this guy's like a gangster. And he's like, well, if you want to work on the docks, you're going to pay me money. And of course, the same guys always get picked to work on the docks. And if you don't like it, well, things happen to you. And K.O. Dugan is one of those guys. Something happens to him. What do you think? I mean, okay, I'm kind of going through a lot of the plot of this story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, basically the movie revolves around Eve trying to find out what happened to her brother. And of course, almost everybody knows what happened. But you know, there's these detectives that want to, they need evidence to go against this main gangster. So they need people to come forward, and nobody wants to come forward because they'll die like Johnny did at the beginning of the film. So Terry needs to be this guy. And throughout the movie, he has chances to be that guy and doesn't. And he fights between doing the right thing and his love for this girl he's just met. And yeah, it's a beautiful movie. I actually kind of always look at it as the inspiration for Rocky. I very much think that Rocky inspired Stallone. This movie inspired Stallone, because think about it. Terry's this boxer who could have been great, but then never was really given the chance to be great. He ends up getting in with loan sharks, working at the docks. Very similar to how Rocky is at the beginning of Rocky. It's of course not exactly the same, but it's almost if Rocky never became a boxer and went and fought Apollo Creed. It's like, what would have happened? This might have been it, you know, like something like that. But yeah, it's just a beautiful film. It's, to me, this is a more character-driven movie than it is plot. You got Terry's brother, who's very much the main gangster's right-hand man. And kind of doesn't look after his brother too much, you know, kind of just says, hey, do what he says. You know, he's the boss, you know, do this, do that. And he's been pushed around his whole life. He lost his boxing career because of it. And he's become what he calls a bum. You know, he says it, and we'll get to the big scene in the movie a little bit later that everybody knows. And if you don't, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You should know this scene. But yeah, so you know, you got a lot of interesting stuff going on here about, you know, the lower class, you know, like, and apparently a lot of parallels to Elia Kazan's personal life, stuff to do with his involvement with communism, stuff about communism and about how he was getting investigated and stuff like that, about how he felt about communism and stuff like that. It's really interesting. You got to look into it. But it's, yeah. I don't know where we want to go with this. So
the thing is, we got what I like is, you know, I mentioned the Carl Malden character. He kind of gets these guys riled up. He gets a bunch of these guys riled up to where they want to rebel against the gangsters and the loan sharks and people that are controlling the docks. But he also, like I said, he kind of gets K.O. Dugan killed because of it, because they drop a box, just a pallet full of wine on his head, because he's going to go to those policemen, those government officials that you talked about. He gets a bunch of wine just dropped on him, and of course he was going to turn, if you were, this just happened to be the term I'm using, state's evidence. You know, they always say state's evidence, yeah. But he was basically going to turn state's evidence on Johnny Friendly, and of course, this is what they do to people, you know. And the same thing goes for Rod Steiger's Charlie. Charlie has a job to do. He can warn his brother to take this job and leave Eve St. Marie, Evie Doyle alone, and get out and get away from all this and go take this job and forget about turning on Johnny Friendly, because Johnny Friendly feels like he did this kid a solid, always looking out for him, giving him easy work on the docks, even though he told him to throw fights, which he shouldn't have been throwing them fights, because he's a great boxer. We know this from the film because there's a really good fighting scene with him in it towards the end of the film where he's just duking it out with Johnny Friendly, and he's really knocking the crap out of Johnny Friendly in this film before about 3 or 4 guys just gang up on him, you know? So the Karl Malden character is kind of like the instigator of these guys. He thinks he's trying to do the right thing here, but it turns out he's making things a lot worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of them instances where, you know, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, and they had to push the envelope to get people to come together because everybody was scared, and he needed to bring people together to then not be scared anymore. And you know, the final draw starts to happen when you know, one of the main character, one of the other workers gets killed also, like you were talking about before. And yeah, and you know, finally, you know, getting to the big scene, which is kind of the turning point, where Marlon Brando, Terry, goes in and gets in the car with his brother, you know, and tries to talk to him about what, you know, his brother wants him to go take this job, like you're saying, shut up, don't say anything. And, you know, he's like, look, no, I can't. I'll think about it, but I don't think I can do that. You know, I don't know. And he's like, look, you know, you probably got the quote right there. I'm sure.
I do have the quote.
I know. Go ahead and say the quote.
Look, okay, before I say the quote, I'm going to say this. If you know me, if you've been watching any of the shows that I've hosted or any of the shows I've done with Andrew or Steven or whoever, I'm a big guy when it comes to movie quotes. The AFI's 100 movie quotes list is like a Bible list for me. It's just like it's something I live by. I love famous movie quotes. One of the all-time great movie quotes. It's number 3 on the AFI's list of the 100 greatest movie quotes of all time. Is this quote, and it's near the end of the movie. It, like you said, Charlie has the car, and he says, Terry, get in, we need to talk. And they eventually start talking, and the quote goes like this. He goes, Terry goes, I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it. It was you, Charlie. Charlie basically made his brother a bum because he convinced him to throw fights, and he convinced him to work for Johnny Friendly. And if you, the way Marlon Brando says this quote in this movie, this line of dialogue is just, oh my God, you just feel so bad for him in this film. You just, because you're like, wow, man, I would have loved to have seen what you could have been, what could have been your career. You could have been a great boxer. Instead, you're working for these loan sharks on this dock, and it's just sad. It's sad that his brother did him like this. And, of course, you know, he's got to figure a way out of this mess that he's in. And, of course, they blame Charlie. They blame Terry, but they also blame Charlie. And we find they were calling Terry because he's up in Edie Doyle's room in our apartment. Like, Charlie or Terry, come down here. Come downstairs. This is when people used to call each other from their houses.
I was going to say that was one thing that really made me think of Rocky also, was like scenes, like the scene of like him, like people communicate through yelling at each other through windows, just like Rocky would. And, you know, like, yo, Andrew, Paulie, I got your sister over here. You know, like they just talk to people. And this takes place in Jersey. So, you know, like up north, of course, everybody's loud. You loud people. Yeah, I'm talking to you, man.
I'm definitely a loud guy. And I'm from up north. We're loud people. But so, of course, he comes downstairs and he finds his brother hanging from a hook on the wall. And this is it for him. This is like the thing that basically clinches him. He basically finally goes and throws Johnny Friendly under the bus to the law. And but he's still the the court case is one of those things that is a big deal in the film, but it's not as big a deal to me because what happens after that when he tries to go back to work. Lee J. Cobb, basically, says, "You'll never work in this town again. You'll never work anywhere in America. You'll never work in Boston, New Orleans, New York, anywhere. You're finished in this town." And if you know who Lee J. Cobb is, juror number 3, I think it's juror number 3 in 12 Angry Men. He has some great scenes in this movie and in that movie, but the end scene where he basically ends up getting in a fight with Terry Malloy, and Terry gets all the workers on the dock to side with him, and they won't work unless Terry works. And then a new guy is in charge. They're all going to go work for him. They're not going to go work for Johnny Friendly anymore. And it's a real powerful scene at the end of the film, and it shows you the power of unions and joining together, and people that are persecuting others and people that are doing wrong. Eventually, hopefully, they get theirs in life.
Yeah, I mean, the power of one person can make a difference, and he very much, takes the weight of what everybody wanted to do and takes it and takes all the beating, takes all the brunt of everything. He gets his ass whooped by a bunch of the gangsters, and takes that so that, he can make everybody come together. It's a powerful scene at the end. He can't walk. They just like, look, you're not, you lost the battle, but you can win the war. You need to walk. That's it. Just walk. And he walks in at the end, and then everybody follows him in, and it's just, it's that's how it ends. It's just like, yes. And it's, I mean, and it's one of them things too. It's like, there's a love story, but it doesn't make it like, it doesn't overshadow the rest of the movie because, that's, we don't end with like, we're going to live happily ever after. Like, you just see her, she watches him go in, and they just smile, him and the priest just smile about it. And then that's it. Like, we don't need to know what happened with him. That's not the point of the movie. It's just a powerful message about, coming together once, love this movie.
Yeah. Like you said that, Hitchcock had these Hitchcock blondes. He picked these blondes. He had some real talented women, but Elia Kazan knew how to get a really great cast in a movie from the bottom all the way up. And everybody in the movie is memorable, from the different guys that are working on the dock to the obviously Carl Malden, and then Martin Balsam is one of the detectives, and of course Lee J. Cobb as Johnny Friendly, and Eve Marie Saint as Edie, and then of course Marlon Brando. Talk about the overall cast and how much you recognize these actors and how these type of actors really help make a great film.
Yeah, I think and talking a little bit about why this is an essential movie too is I think that this was a big step forward, and not only Marlon Brando, because I think Marlon Brando gets a lot of the credit for how he kind of took film acting into another level. And I think that this whole cast does that. There's a lot of great acting in this whole cast that starts to bridge that gap between play acting and film acting. And it's Brando's known for his method acting. And that shows. This was the first time I think he won an Academy Award for this, didn't he? And the movie won, of course, too. And it's definitely. I think that if there was anything I could say definitely essential about it is that it was a leap forward in film acting for me, and just an overall cast and using really getting deep into a character study. I like character study movies are my favorite. And then also Eli Kazan's direction. He sets a tone through the whole movie, and just has these beautiful one shots of like the docks and the ships, big ships, and just it's a beautiful movie, black and white movie to look at too. I mean, it's
and the music.
Awesome.
Leonard Bernstein's one of the all-time great composers, and he composed the music for this. Under some of these certain like tense scenes, the music just ratchets up to the next level, and you really get a sense of how important some of the scenes are that are going on because of the music that Leonard Bernstein comes up with. I mean, when you're talking about Brando, you're talking about one of the greats of all time. I mean, I think I got him on my top 5 or 6 personal greatest favorite actors of all time. I mean, that's, you know, his stuff that happened to him in later life. I mean, you know, besides that, the guy just brought it time and time again for so many years. And obviously by films like The Godfather and On the Waterfront are 2 of the all-time greats for Brando. But thank you, Stephen, for doing this episode of the 52 Must-See Movies and Why They Matter on the Waterfront. I'm glad I had an opportunity to discuss this great classic film with you once again. Where can you be found?
I can be found on the Facebooks and the YouTubes and the Instagrams and just all social media. Just look for Stephen Billings or Movie Man 16. Of course, Stardust app is something new I'm on, so check that out too.
And you can find me, Dan Skip-Allen, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Also, obviously, multiple shows here on the Best Damn Movie Show channel on YouTube with my buddies, cohorts in crime, Stephen and Andrew. We're mixing it up, doing different episodes. We take turns and co-host and host and so forth. Also, I do a new show that's starting up very, very soon called Upon Further Review, a show where I'm just going to take a sports movie. I'm going to have a co-host. I'm going to talk about that movie in depth, and it's going to be a lot of fun because I love sports movies. So, for Stephen and myself, good night.